The coaching carousel has exploded, and we are officially in flip season.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. And it is the coaching carousel season as well. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We have a loaded show for you today with the coaching carousel at the front. But as always, we will get to the recruiting commitments, decommitments, and I have a few things that I need to kind of hint at. Can't get to specifically yet, but expect a lot of drama coming up with signing day and all the different things that are going on. College football is about to see a really big change in who's wearing which uniforms. We're going to be talking about that a little later in the show. But first, Lane Kiffin, Jon Sumrall, Alex Golesh, Pete Golding, and just kind of the overall theme with the college football coaching carousel. Who's going where and why? What do I think of them as recruiters, as talent evaluators? There are a lot of little parts to this, but also how the coaches hire their staff. That is vital. Not just their assistant coaches, but the back office staff. Everybody that's involved with the strength and conditioning staff. All those things, you have to evaluate that as well when you talk about roster management, because it's massive. For instance, we're going to start with Lane Kiffin. I'm just going to use this as an example. If he makes the wrong hire, especially in a state like Louisiana, which is very, very touchy about locals getting jobs, who he does or does not hire, who he does or does not fire, that can cause a lot of problems with in-state recruiting. Even in a state like Louisiana, which is very loyal, every hire is magnified. And it's not that much different for somebody like Sumrall, who's now at the University of Florida. Alex Golesh going from USF to Auburn. There are all these little things, and I'm going to try to explain them overall and what fans should expect. For those that are watching this later on and not watching it live, I'm going to cut this up, do segments, and you can go back and watch each of the coaches. But again, we're going to start with Kiffin. And if you take nothing else from this podcast, note the following. This is not a quote-unquote slam dunk hire. It is the most likely hire that's going to get the most attention because A, it's LSU, B, it's Kiffin, and there's expectations. But LSU is a very unique place. There are no guarantees. But this is a place that has seen the wildest of coaching hires and firings over the last 30 years, arguably of anybody, based on what happened after the fact, things that we heard about, but then maybe got confirmed. I'm not going to go into it, but LSU has a very unique history. Part of it is the state itself, but part of it is the coaches they hired worked from Louisiana or anything close to it. Now, Kiffin, obviously, he's close to Saban, and Saban advised him to go to LSU, among other people. But at the same time, either you are or you are not from Louisiana. Like, I've lived there. That's a very unique place. Not everybody adjusts that well. So my first question is, how will Lane like it? Just himself. The family obviously signed off on it, or they wouldn't have got on the plane with him to go to Baton Rouge. But this is going to be unique. Who does he hire on his defensive staff? Who does he hire on his recruiting staff? Those are some of the things that I want to see. We have some ideas. There's some notes that have been out as far as who's going to be coaching. I actually have one list. This is a pretty interesting list of coaches. I'm just going to read this off. It's a post from Zach Nunez on X. Shout out to Zach. Head coach is obviously Kiffin. Wide receiver coach is going to be Cortez Hankton, allegedly. Charlie Weiss Jr. got on the plane. He's going to be the OC quarterback coach, possibly. What about Tim Rattay? Is he going to still be around to coach quarterbacks? I don't know. Frank Wilson, I think that's a lock. Running backs coach. Wide receiver, that's another guy. George McDonald, Sawyer Jordan, that's a couple of guys mentioned. Are they assistant coaches? Are they going to be in the back office? How does that work? Tight ends coach, Joe Cox. Is that still going to be a thing? What about Alex Atkins? Maybe he is. He was entrenched at the program for just one season and the coaches get fired. I have no idea if Atkins will be there. He was prior at Florida State. Brad Davis, offensive line coach. Will that remain the same? Defense coordinator, Blake Baker. He had a good defense this year. I would think they'd want to keep him, but maybe Blake gets a job offer somewhere else. You don't know. Defensive line, Kevin Peoples, Kyle Williams, one or both. We'll see. Chris Kiffin, I don't know what capacity he's going to be there, but for whatever it's worth, Zach Nunez says, what about linebackers coach? Safety, Jake Olson. Cornerback, this is a lot. Corey Raymond, he's a legend at LSU. Special teams, Ahmad Anand. I don't know if that's going to be a case. I don't know much about him. General manager, Austin Thomas, Billy Glasscock. These are a couple of the guys, possibility. Who ends up being on the strength and conditioning staff? He's got Nick Savage and Jake Flint. I don't know much about that, but for those who don't know, the people that spend the most time with the players are the strength and conditioning staff by a million miles. They have a lot more autonomy over their staff to go out and make sure the players are doing the right things in the offseason. Coaches aren't really allowed to be around them very much in the middle of the summer. They've changed it a little bit to make it better, but by and large, it's strength staff that's going to have the autonomy to say, hey, you need to do this, that, and the other. So that's an important hire too. What I'm going to guess, based on that post on X, and again, thanks to Mr. Nunez, it kind of gives me a nice list to go off of. At least one or two of those, may even be surprising, will end up elsewhere. And here's why. It has nothing to do with Kiffin. This is the coaching carousel. Somebody is going to offer one of these guys a job they can't refuse because the title goes up and the dollar bills go up as well. How does Kiffin handle that? This is a back and forth. It could be a job that somebody like Texas comes in and takes one of the LSU assistants. Somebody like Florida comes in and takes one of the assistants. Maybe it's Ohio State. I don't know how Kiffin handles these little things. And again, remember, this is the state of Louisiana. There is no more ethnocentric area in the United States than Southern Louisiana, period. I've been all over the country. It's very specific. They want Louisiana people doing Louisiana things. LSU's first on that list. Any hires he makes, they're going to get scrutinized, back office, assistants, anything else, if Kiffin does not hire Louisiana people or somebody that has a connection to the school. There'll at least be some. Now, some people don't care as long as they represent the purple and gold, by all means. But 7-on-7 coaches, trainers, people like myself in the recruiting industry, we all know that LSU is a different entity. I'm really curious to see how the staff finalizes. Looks like it's a pretty good staff so far, but we don't know for sure. So a couple other questions about Kiffin. Frank Wilson, as I mentioned, likely to stay on staff. But what does he do in terms of keeping everybody that's on the roster there? How quickly can they get that done and figure out the NIL moving forward? Everybody knows Kiffin's offense. He's not going to change that. It should be pretty interesting. I would imagine they're going to get a couple of kids to flip. There's the Oklahoma commitment that's from Lafayette. We're about an hour and 10 minutes away from Baton Rouge. Many expect him to end up going to LSU. I think he just decommitted from Oklahoma, actually. That wouldn't surprise me. If you're a wide receiver, high school recruit, I think Kiffin's offense would be pretty exciting. But what about the players on the roster? How many they're going to lose? One wide receiver's already announced he's going to hit the portal. So apparently he's not a part of the game plan for whatever reason. How many others leave? But the more important thing isn't the offense. Kiffin will figure that out. Charlie Weiss Jr. will figure that out. It's the defense. They've got a lot of really good young defensive players. Can they keep them? And on top of that, can they keep them without breaking the bank? They're spending a ton of money right now. If Kiffin and Ole Miss parted ways, it wasn't just because he wanted to go to LSU. I know all coaches say it's not about the money. It's always about the money in some capacity. They're paying him a ton of money. The assistant staff's going to cost money. They got all these buyouts. How much are they going to have to delve into their pot of gold to pay the players to stay? I'm curious about that. And then once they get into the offseason, full on, like they get all the staff, and by next week they should, signing days pass and all that. Get to middle of next week, it's going to be very, very important for LSU to have a definitive game plan. So I look for the coaching staff to come to fruition in full totality pretty much within the week or so, other than maybe like one hire when somebody leaves. That's going to happen. It is what it is. It's not necessarily a Kiffin problem. That's just college football. Business is business. But they should have a pretty good offseason. And I asked the question for anybody listening to this, watching this, whatever it may be, whether you're an LSU fan or not. How patient will LSU fans be, which are traditionally very non-patient, when it comes to winning? Are they going to get the right quarterback? I'm going to go ahead and throw out that there's a really good chance of one in particular quarterback transferring to LSU. I'll leave it at that. But at the same time, how many players are they going to get, defense, offense, to make them a contender and make the playoff? Remember, this is year 2 of the playoff, and they're not in. Fair or unfair, and LSU fans are about as linear as it gets in terms of what their expectations for greatness are. They expect him to make the playoff next year. Guarantee it. If they don't, for any reason, quarterback getting hurt or anything else, how does that go with Kiffin and LSU? He's got a big ego. Will he be able to handle that pressure? This is a different kind of job. It's fascinating, and I really don't know how that's going to go, but I think LSU getting Kiffin is one of the most unique culture fits that you're going to see. And I'm curious to see if he can do it again in year 1, where he can at least get him to the playoff. I'm not saying win it, but get him to the playoff. It's possible. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about Pete Golding. He's taking over, allegedly, at Ole Miss, what that would be like. We're going to talk about Alex Golesh going to Auburn. We're also going to talk about Jon Sumrall going to Florida. That is next on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams, it's the first time ever. It's going to be massive. Let's be honest, though, getting tickets is not the easiest part about going to the World Cup. That's why Game Time is clutch, finally giving fans an advantage when they really need it to snag some tickets. Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts whenever the great seats open, and buy tickets the moment that they hit the Game Time app. It puts the power back in your hands, the fan. So you can browse on there for anything, football, basketball, baseball, and for the World Cup. Look, it's pretty simple. You go in, you click on something that you're interested in. You can see the venue, you click on seats, and then you can actually see what that seat view is to the middle of the field, to the court, to the concert, or anything else. The seat view in particular for me is a game changer, and it's why I bought 2 tickets recently for basketball off Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day. If you have not already, become an everyday or subscribe and lock in with the Portal Podcast. Got shows up just about every day early in the morning, 3 a.m. audio, 5 a.m. is going to be your YouTube. Do live shows at noon. It's a lot of fun. And we post the live show thereafter later in the afternoon. So anything that you can imagine with roster management, recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, and yes, the coaching carousel, that is my bag. With that, let's talk a little bit about who had the best coaching hire out of all this stuff. Alex Golesh and Jon Sumrall are going to get compared forever now because it looked like Sumrall was going to Auburn. Then he ended up going to Florida. And Alex Golesh, the guy that's at USF, I kind of wonder if he was going to be at UF because he beat them earlier this year. He ends up going to Auburn. So let's talk about them. And we'll get to Pete Golding in a second, too. I have an interesting thought on that one as well, because if he gets hired at Ole Miss, there are a lot of questions, really, we go with. But I have one major one that's important. Let's talk about Sumrall first. This is a defensive-minded guy. He's done a lot of good things throughout his tenure. Kentucky grad. He's coached at his alma mater. He's also coached at Tulane, Troy, Ole Miss. He's been around a lot of places. Do I think he's going to be a guy that's going to automatically go in and dominate at Florida? No, but he's a good football coach. Never heard anything about him that doesn't stimulate my mind in terms of saying old school, power football, play defense. We'll see how it goes. My question for him, just like any defensive-minded guy, offense. How will the offense go for Sumrall? To that end, I'm not convinced DJ Lagway is going to be back in Florida no matter what because he was so attached. I can't believe I'm saying this, but everything I've been told, he's been attached to Billy Napier. Obviously wasn't a great coach and didn't help DJ that much. If he's not back, how do they handle quarterback? They're in a bad spot at quarterback. The roster in general is pretty good, but they're not anywhere near where they need to be at quarterback. Where in the world are they going to get that quarterback that's going to be a guy? Keep that in the back of your mind. Number 2, with him, same question with Kiffin, the staff. It's not as bad at Florida. I've lived in the state of Florida for a long time. I've been around that program in different ways. It's a great campus, great stadium and all that. The fan base is nuts. The expectations are extremely high. The fans are impatient because the last couple coaches didn't get it done. And above all else, Florida fans are in the SEC and they think they should be a top-ranked program. They're going to expect something next year. So can he get some of the elite kids in the portal? I don't know, but he's going to be expected to, just like Kiffin. Signing day coming up. How does that go over? Are they going to be able to keep this class? It's been staying together for the most part, but I need to see it just to finalize. And finally, this is the same thing for each of the final three coaches I'm going to talk about today. I think Kiffin will do this pretty well because he's at LSU, but can Sumrall recruit, like be involved directly himself with the 5-star or the borderline 5-star kids and win the battle? The teams that are winning the most right now, what I think are the 4 best programs in college football for the long term, in no particular order: Oregon, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Georgia. What do they all have in common? Head coaches that are good on game day and all that, but they're elite recruiters. Not good, elite. That is the difference. I have no idea what Sumrall is going to be able to do because this is his first Power 4 job as a head guy. It's going to be the same thing for Pete Golding. It's going to be the same thing for Alex Golesh. If you cannot get the 5-star guys, your fan bases, which expect you to compete for titles, are eventually going to be mad because you're not going to win. There is no shortcut. To win championships, you got to get those top 50 kind of recruits, especially in the trenches. Can he get those guys? No clue. We don't have any barometer for it, but that's something to think about. A couple of questions that I have with Sumrall going to Florida. Who's his offensive staff going to be? I talked about that. DJ Wagway, don't know. Can you imagine what the Jaden Ball sweepstakes are going to be? Can you imagine? Like, that guy just ran for 266 yards against Florida State. And I know the Noles aren't very good, but that's a lot. That's a record in a big-time rivalry game. There's going to be a lot with that. And finally, now that they're breaking the bank for Sumrall and all his staff and getting rid of Napier and all that, how much are they going to be able to break the bank, A, with the portal, and B, for recruiting not 26, but the 27 class? Are they really going to give him the tools to have a top 5 class? Because UF needs one. They better. If not, it's going to be really, really hard for the Florida Gators to match expectations. Scott Strickland is not the most popular guy in Gainesville, but he better figure that out with the boosters, and they seemingly have the money. All right, now let's real quick, I'll just go into the chat here, get a couple. Katie, what's going on? At Auburn and LSU, your job can be gone as soon as your job rubbed the wrong person the wrong way. You're not wrong. The SEC has a lot of fickle fans. I would imagine LSU's worse than Auburn, but nonetheless, it is touchy at all these places because everybody wants a say in how things are done. Alan Beck, just never say no to him. I guess you're talking about Kiffin. Katie, when I saw the governor fire Brian Kelly, LSU would go on my list of places not to coach. That was a very unique situation. I don't really know who fired him per se, but Kelly, I can tell you just from prior stops, etc., he's a difficult guy to deal with. I never thought that was a fit, and that's why I brought up all the stuff I did with Lane Kiffin, although I think Kiffin's 10 times better fit than what Brian Kelly is. Remember, Brian Kelly's from Boston. I mean, that's about as far away from Baton Rouge you can get culturally. So I knew that wasn't going to be a great fit. King Kermit, Auburn national championship within 3 years with the prayer sign. Well, it's possible. Anything can be possible. And then we've got Archie Ingram. Do you think Kiffin should be able to coach Ole Miss? And if not, why? No, I don't, because he's going to recruit their players. It's just, it's natural human instinct. From being around it from the inside and stuff you can't talk about publicly, that always happens. It's a disaster. And the Ole Miss administration, the guys that are actually in charge of it, the women in charge of it, the fan base wants Kiffin gone. Okay, they want it because it's now over with. If they would have allowed him to coach, and I mean this full on, there would have been death threats and everything else to administrators at Ole Miss. There would have been all kinds of problems, kids, your spouse, etc., going in public. Like, it's that bad. They wanted Kiffin gone. It was toxic. It had to happen. And if you don't believe me, go watch the Locked On Ole Miss podcast with Stephen Willis. It's pretty awkward. Thank you for all the questions. Truly appreciate it. Let's get back into the chat here and just a few minutes. I'm sure we'll have some more, but I'm going to get my last break in. Then we're going to talk about Golesh. We're also going to talk about Pete Golding. Still got a lot to get to right here on this edition of Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little closer when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself or you're sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to the door. And this week is the best time to jump in because Cyber Sale is here and the deals are huge. So you can do it a lot of different ways. You could obviously send it wherever you want, to yourself or to somebody else. And it's not just steaks or burgers. You can get side items. You can get comfort meals already made. You can just do desserts, whatever you want. And again, they are delivered to your door. Say big on the unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. OmahaSteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an additional 20% off select favorites during the Cyber Sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's OmahaSteaks.com, promo COLLEGE. Terms apply. See the site for details. All right, let's talk about the circumstance that is going on at Auburn. Alex Golesh, I think, is the most fascinating of the four hires because I didn't see it coming. I actually did a podcast with Locked On Auburn host Zach Blackerby, and we talked about Saturday night after the game against Alabama for the Iron Bowl. We didn't really know what was going to happen. We were both open-endedly kind of curious. Is it going to be DJ Durkin? Blah, blah, blah. There were a lot of things going on. The next morning, I checked my phone and Zach's live. It's been published that Golesh is the new coach. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I didn't see that one coming. However, I had lived in Tampa. I've got friends still there. I know that program well enough to know it is really hard to win there. They'd won like 4 games in 3 years. He can build a program. He's coached at UCF. He's coached at USF. He's coached at Tennessee. And that's just the beginning. Here are a few of the other places that Golesh has been just as a barometer and why I think this will work. Oklahoma State, Illinois, Iowa State. When you look at all those places, he knows how to build a program with guys that weren't necessarily the quote-unquote 5 stars. That's important. But here's what else is important. He's also been at Tennessee. He was tight ends, OC. He's been a guy that's seen what it's like when it works. And when they went to Tennessee with that offense, Heupel, and give him credit, they did a good job. But they hit the ground running year one. Auburn, just ironically, with the personnel that they currently have, assuming all the key offensive pieces stay, O-line included, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, etc. Like this, the freshman and sophomore group is really good. And then there's several other guys too. I'm not going to run down the whole list, but Perry Thompson could explode, etc. They run those wide splits. I'm really excited about the wide receiver room. Now, quarterback's interesting because I don't know how that's going to go. There's multiple layers to this. They've got a quarterback recruit that's been recruited by Syracuse. Does he sign? Does Deuce Knight stay? Which guys end up staying at Auburn? And does Byron Brown end up coming? He was at USF. He's one of the rarest players statistically, literally, in history of college football. Threw for over 3,000 yards and ran for over 1,000. 175 carries, 1,008 yards, 5.8 yards per 14 scores. And as a passer, 226 at 341, 66%, 3,158 yards, 9.3 yards per attempt. That's really good. 28 touchdowns, 7 picks. He's a beast, and he's 230 pounds. So he can run the football and be a power guy. My only question is, can he run that much in the SEC and stay healthy? That's something, if he ends up transferring to Auburn or anywhere else, now that Golesh is gone, he's got to go somewhere. That might be different, but he's got 1 year of eligibility left. I would assume Auburn, but if not, that somebody's going to get one heck of a quarterback. He might even have an NFL future. That's going to be really fascinating. And to that end, here's the other question. Who are going to be the defensive assistants, and is Durkin going to be the guy that's going to stay? Now, he was in the running, allegedly, for the head coaching position at Auburn. Is he the guy that stays and manages the defense for the Tigers? A lot of those players, and they were good this year on D, a lot of those players are very loyal to him. Just like I mentioned with Florida, just like I really mentioned with LSU. That's the most ethnocentric place out of all these. You need to get kids from Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Panhandle of Florida. Like, they want their people, not just players, but on the staff, etc. And I'm sure Golesh knows that. I'm sure he's going to bring some of his staff too, but how much does it mix and how much does it work? That's really important. And then finally to that, if you want to do the one thing I talked about already once, going to talk about a couple more times starting right now, how do you recruit 5 stars? In the state of Alabama, it is very, very touchy in certain areas. Mobile has its own group. Montgomery has its own group. Mobile to Birmingham's a long way, but it's the same theory. There's certain trainers like Coach L in Birmingham. How well do you connect with him? All the different trainers like QB Country down in Mobile, like all these different people. Your staff needs to have connections there. You need to keep several of the people that are already at Auburn on staff. If not, you're going to lose those connections. Then you're going to lose the recruiting wars, and then you're going to be fired. That's the same thing at all these schools. No nice way to say this. College football is politics on steroids, especially with recruiting. The 7-on-7 coaches, the trainers, all that. It is a really touchy situation. Most of it I really can't talk about. But there are 7-on-7 coaches that I know that don't like certain head coaches in college or don't like certain programs. And if you get rid of one of their guys at your school and you're already kind of on the outs with them, that could be 5 to 10 guys you're off your board right off the bat. I have no idea which ones they are at Auburn that he needs to keep specifically in terms of the assistant staff, but there are definitely some back office guys. I'll leave it at that. They need to definitely keep. How does Golesh handle that? Because again, you're not going to beat like your 2 biggest rivals are Georgia and Bama. They're almost always going to have more talent than you. But when you have a chance at a 5-star, like Jatori Williams, a kid at Phoenix City Central, right before I hit live on this show, he decommitted from Alabama. Phoenix City Central is the same high school that Cam Coleman went to and a plethora of other guys that have played at Auburn over the years, but Bama's had their success there. And there's even an elite, in my opinion, 5-star kid that's a freshman there that's coming up. Like, you need to set the precedent. You need to get that kid. If not, again, if you're not getting them, they're probably going to end up in one of the programs that it's a rival, Georgia, Bama. That's not good for business. Maybe even Lane gets him from LSU. The point is still the same. How do they handle all the politics of hiring the right people to make sure things work? Not just in Alabama, but the other part of this. Their main hub is really Atlanta because it's an hour and a half from Auburn to Atlanta to like be in the city, not the outskirts, like be in the city. So you can look at it from that perspective as well. A couple other questions on the Auburn situation. Let's talk about this now. Cam Coleman, Deuce Knight, Malcolm Simmons, like what's going on there? They need those guys to stay, but why wouldn't they? I love the offense for the college game, but what defense are you going to run if Durkin is not the guy? How does that work? How do you keep those players? Those are vital. Auburn needs to absolutely keep as many of those defensive guys. It's going to be important. Amaris Williams, you've got so many guys, Bagans, Jalen Crawford, like the freshman sophomore group, Jared Smith, it's really good. They've got 3 defensive tackles in the freshman class that are all really good. I'm curious to see how Auburn does that. Finally, I want to talk about, and this is the one I know the least about, Pete Golding. I don't know the man. I don't have any connections to him, but he was at Bama from like 2017 or 18 through like 2021. So he's seen what it looks like. But at the same time, he's coached a couple other interesting places. He's been at Southern Miss. He's been at University Texas San Antonio. But now how does he handle being a head coach? He's getting promoted. This is different. How does he handle the back office staff? How many of those guys are going to go with Lane down to Baton Rouge? There are a lot of questions. And I'm not saying that he's not a loyalist to Ole Miss, but he's in a tough spot because Ole Miss fans are very proud. They want to win. I get it. But half his staff is going to be in Baton Rouge and they're going on a playoff run. That's not fair to him, but he's going to be graded on it. And in the offseason, how much money are they going to be able to spend with LSU absolutely wanting to make a splash? They're going to be competing for some of the same kids. And then it's just the normal people, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, Florida. Like, that's going to be interesting. And same question that I've asked for the last couple of guys, and to a certain degree, Kiffin too. Can Pete Golding be a major reason directly involved in helping Ole Miss sign not just good players, but high-end 4-star to 5-star players? That's a yes or no. Again, the 4 best programs, in my opinion, in college football all have the same theme. The head coach is really good on game day, but they also are elite recruiters. Dan Lanning at Oregon, Ryan Day at Ohio State, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, and Kirby Smart at Georgia. They're not good recruiters. They are elite recruiters. That is the difference in their programs. If you don't have that, you're in trouble. I have no idea what Pete Golding can do because now he's going to be looked at in a different light. That's a major question. It's a fair one. But I'm going to look at this with open arms because he's starting basically when he gets hired and that officially happens and everybody knows it's going to be him. Look, I think it's a big deal and I think it's great that he's getting his shot, but he's got a very small window. And again, it's not fair, but this is the way it works in college football. There is no fair in college football. LSU is what he's going to be graded against. Good luck. They've got so many advantages from a recruiting standpoint, it's not even funny. Like even the Southern Mississippi kids, for the most part, root for LSU growing up. It's just true. So I'm curious to see how that goes and whether or not they have the opportunity to win some of those battles against Kiffin, obviously. But can they keep Bama out of Mississippi? Can they keep Auburn and Alex Golesh out of Mississippi? I mean, Ohio State and Notre Dame are even recruiting down there now. It's a different ballgame than it used to be. If Pete Golding wants to win big at Ole Miss, he's got to be a major reason that they keep some of those kids home. We'll see if he can. Last question on him. Who's his offensive coordinator going to be? And what are they going to run? Are they going to kind of go with the same thing that Kiffin did? And Kiffin's a hell of a play caller. You could say what you want about him, and sometimes he gets a little too fancy. I get it. But overall, he's really good with scheme. Are you going to be able to match that, especially because Charlie Weiss Jr. took off for Baton Rouge? That's a great question. I don't know if they go in-house, out-house. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult to match what Kiffin did, but you need to score too. So we'll see what Pete Golding does. As a final part here, we're going to get to got a couple comments. We'll get to that. Then we'll get to some recruiting. The Kiffin situation reminds me how fast you can go from hero to zero. That's from Katie. Katie, you're absolutely right. Like the game that LSU plays, it won't be in the 26 season, but the 27 season when he goes to Oxford, they will need a very high amount of security. Like it will be massive. I don't look forward to that, but they're going to have to be very careful. Like he's going to be hated. Katie, again, I love this channel because of your knowledge and the way you pay attention to those of us that watch and have something to say. Appreciate it. I really like doing these live shows at noon. It's just honesty. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm going to give my opinion. I'm going to give you what I can with the information behind closed doors. Some of it is not, as they say, the easiest to discuss because with confidence, but I try to give hints. And I'm telling you, the hires today that I talked about, the 4, look, they all have politics involved, but the LSU Kiffin / Pete Golding situation is as political as any coaching situation that I've ever seen because of the whole conundrum with Kiffin leaving and Ole Miss having a chance to go into the college football playoff. That is awkward. So we're going to be talking about this probably the rest of my life because it's going to be a barometer and a test. But thank you very much, Katie. Appreciate you stopping in as often as you do. Let's talk a little bit of recruiting. Just this is in no random particular order. But again, like Ja'Tori Williams, the class of 27 offensive tackle, just decommitted from Alabama. He is a stud. That's a really important one. And they've even got guys coming in too. Like it's insane how many guys have made decisions here in the last day or so. No particular order, but Max Wright out of Melissa, Texas. That's the greater Dallas area. Staying home, offensive tackle. He is going to SMU. Maryland picks up Sean Johnson. That's a flip from Florida State. Archbishop Spalding in the greater DC area. Good safety prospect pickup for Maryland. UTSA, Kevin Davis III out of Klein Forest in Houston. That's a wide receiver, 6'2", 175 pounds, staying home, going to UTSA. Texas picks up Jamarian Carlton out of Temple, Texas. He's an edge rusher, 6'4", 260, top 200 player by 24/7. Let's see what we got here. Texas State, I believe it is. Montana State picks up Caden Cole out of Heights High School in Houston. wide receiver, 6'2", 170 pounds. Stanford, Michael Mitchell Jr., Archbishop Riordan in San Francisco, quarterback. Not the biggest guy in the world, 5'10", 185, but he's pretty talented. Arizona State, Kirtland, I'm going to probably mispronounce this, Vakahali at a New Mexico Military Institute, defensive lineman, 6'5", 260, going to ASU. Minnesota gets a couple guys. Brady Palmer at a Cathedral Catholic in San Diego, quarterback, 6'2", 200 pounds. And they also pick up Tavian White at a Waukee High School in Iowa. He's a safety, 6 foot, 175 pounds, also going to play for the Gophers. Alabama, they dip into the junior college ranks here. This is interesting. Interior offensive lineman Tyrell Miller, College of San Mateo in San Mateo, California. Remember, a lot of that staff has West Coast ties. 6'5", 305. He is headed to the University of Alabama. Kevin Moore, Hutchinson Community College in Kansas, defensive lineman, 6'4", 277, going to play for the Arizona Wildcats. Let's see here. What else we got? Akron picks up Savion Lewis at a Villa St. Joseph in Cleveland, Ohio. That's a famous program. 5'11", 175 pounds. Michigan picks up Jamarian Vincent out of Waco Connolly, Waco, Texas. Corner, 6'2", 165 pounds, top 200 player, headed to the state of Michigan to play for the Wolverines. Kennesaw State picks up Landon Barnes, Mississippi Gulf College, Community College, quarterback, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Again, Kennesaw State. They've actually had a pretty good program over the years. North Carolina AT&T, Ben Boulware out of Oak Grove High School in Winston-Salem, defensive lineman, 6'5", 305. Wisconsin, Taylor Schaefer, Iowa Central Community College in Fort Dodge, Iowa, linebacker, 6'4", 240. At that size, I wonder if he ends up playing some defensive end for the Badgers. Virginia Tech, Maddox Cochran, Benedictine in Richmond, Virginia, offensive tackle, 6'7", 280. NC State, William Vaughn out of Kings Mountain High School in North Carolina, tight end, 6'3", 225 pounds. Out of Tarleton State, we got, I think that's Tarleton State. That's right. Roderick Johnson, Montgomery Peninsula College in Monterey, California, an edge, so he's a JUCO kid, 6'3", 230. He's headed again to Tarleton State. Charlotte picks up Tredarius Smith, Pearl River Community College in Poplarville, Mississippi, corner, 6'2", 190. Purdue picks up JoJo Johnson out of Benedictine in Richmond, Virginia, wide receiver, 6'4", 175. Rice picks up Brock Reddick out of Kilgore College in Kilgore, Texas. That's a famous program. The JUCO ranks. D lineman, 6'4", 310 pounds. Temple picks up Daviar Bishop, East Mississippi Community College, defensive lineman, 6'4", 260. Wake Forest is going to Raven Gap. That's a boarding school in North Georgia, and he is a safety, 6', 180. He's going to Wake Forest. Devontae Anderson, West Orange. This is wild. Not really sure what's going on here. Rutgers picks up one of the better DBs in Central Florida. Did not see this one coming. 6'1", 185 pounds. Devontae Anderson headed to Rutgers. Arizona picks up Justin Morales, El Paso Franklin High School, El Paso, Texas. Offensive tackle, 6'4", 265. He'll be playing for the Wildcats. UTSA picks up Cale Meisman, not sure how that's pronounced. Victory Valley College in Victorville, California, wide receiver, 6'5", 215. UTSA. Boston College picks up Cameron McGee out of Grayson, one of the best programs in the South. Defensive lineman, 6'3", 330 pounds. Adam Austin from MacArthur High School, Lawton, Oklahoma, linebacker, 6'1", 200 pounds, going to Boise State. We also have, let's see, is this Akron? Or who we got here? Yep, it's Akron. John Stevens, Holmes Community College in Goodman, Mississippi, interior lineman, 6'3", 300 pounds. He will play for Akron. And Virginia, Isaiah Harris out of Thomas Jefferson, Richmond, Virginia, 6', 180, headed to Virginia. Again, I want to just note, this is something like I follow Hayes Fawcett, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well on X. Goodness gracious, there's so many guys. I can't even keep up. It's insane. Ja'Cory Smith is committed to Arkansas. I just checked his page out of Bryan, Arkansas. He decommitted from Oklahoma in November. So they pick up a kid. Arkansas just got Ryan Silverfield. I believe this is the name, the guy from Memphis. I don't know much about him. And maybe Arkansas is going to hit the ground running. Maybe they're going to spend some more money. That would be pretty interesting, but we'll see. Also, Colorado freshman linebacker Montrez Walker plans to enter the portal, according to Hayes Fawcett. But thank you, folks, very much for coming in, checking out everything. I would just want to make a couple basic announcements for the rest of the week. I've got a couple other podcasts, some crossovers coming up, Wisconsin, Indiana, etc., that I'll put up over the next couple of days. But I'm also going to do a signing day show, tentatively planning for middle of the afternoon on Wednesday after some of these coaches go to the podium, but it's not the end all be all. I'm going to be traveling Wednesday night / early Thursday morning. I won't have live shows on Thursday at noon or Friday at noon. They'll be back the next week, but there'll be plenty of information. I'm going to have more YouTube shorts, more social media stuff. You can find me at FBScout_Florida on X. That's the best place to find me. And to be honest with you, there's going to be so much upheaval. I'm just teasing this intentionally, and I can't give any name. There are going to be some serious quarterback moves coming up, SEC and otherwise. Big-time quarterback moves coming. Going to be a little upheaval in fan bases. Probably be careful about what you say, what you do. Hint, there's going to be some people probably say some things they shouldn't when some of these guys leave. It's coming. But I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on with the quarterbacks over the next week or two. We'll see how many publicly announce. That's part of it. What I know and when they announce are not one and the same. It's going to get awkward. And some of these kids are going to make decisions for themselves. Some are going to take the money, etc. Could be a lot of fans mad. Don't be that person that says something that hurts your school. Don't do it. Just keep that in mind. With that, thank you very much for checking out the Portal Podcast. Again, we will have shows again, 3 a.m. audio, 5 a.m. It's going to be on YouTube. We really enjoy having this podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and I love running it. Everybody have a good one. We will see you again soon on the Portal Podcast.